What does the suppression of the black vote and the building of Confederate statues have in common? Well, the Reconstruction period. Hi, my name is Dr. Ardencia Hall Karambe, and welcome to this Black History Moment. In December 1863, Lincoln devised a plan to rebuild the economic and political South and to aid the 4 million former slaves in the beginning of their new lives as free people after the Civil War. It was called the Reconstruction. Under the watch of General Howard, the Freedmen's Bureau was established in 1865 and ran until 1872. It was started to meet the needs of Negroes. The first task was to secure economic freedom for blacks. Congressman Thaddeus Stevens, a Republican from Pennsylvania, proposed the 40 acres and a mule solution, in which confiscated plantations would be divided and distributed to blacks. Charles Sumner, the Massachusetts senator, fought for land titles for free blacks as well. Named the Radical Republicans, these members of Congress and their colleagues realized that without land, Negroes would be at the mercies of former slave owners, whose war losses had made them quite vindictive. They were salty. Lincoln was assassinated in 1865 before he could carry out the main ideas of his plan. Andrew Johnson became president. He was anxious to make amends with the former rebels, so he pardoned them, returned their lands, and granted home rule, which meant white rule. Sounding familiar? Fearing any economic and political gains by blacks, a revised edition of the Black Codes was designed throughout the South. But an amazing thing happened next. The Black Codes backfired. Why, you might ask? I'll tell you why. Because the 39th Congress, which was controlled by those radical Republicans, refused to recognize the Southern delegates who intended to institutionalize a modified form of slavery. The Joint Committee of 15, led by Stevens and Sumner, was appointed to investigate the ex-Confederate states. Their findings helped sway the public opinion and Congress to pass the Civil Rights Act of April 1866 that gave black citizenship, and in June 1866, Congress passed the 14th Amendment, giving black men the ballot. Only Tennessee ratified the measure. The other southern states reacted with reprisals against blacks, rioting and burning of black schools and churches. Congress responded with the Reconstruction Act, March 2nd, 1867. The former Confederate states, except Tennessee, were divided into 5 districts and placed under martial law. The states were required to ratify the 14th Amendment in order to be readmitted into the Union. This made Republicans very popular with black folks, gave them a political advantage. Remember, the Republican Party in question is not the Republican Party of today, although they love to call themselves the Party of Lincoln, but there was an ideological switch. But that's for another episode. Blacks organized the Loyal League and Union League, both aimed at securing the black ballot. On March 5th, 1870, the 15th Amendment was passed to protect black suffrage. During this optimistic period, many blacks were elected or appointed to governments between 1868 and 1896. 113 black legislators served in Louisiana alone. In the reconstructed South Carolina legislature, 50 members were black and 13 white. Most were former slaves who learned to read and write while in office. The power of the black vote was evident in the 1868 presidential election. 450,000 blacks voted for Grant. The Democratic candidate lost by 300,000 votes. Blacks gave Grant the decisive edge. Sounds familiar? This is when both parties first recognized that the black vote could make or break an election bid. That's why, until this day, the suppression of the black vote is a political power play used to win an election. Under Grant, Reconstruction flourished. Teachers from New England went down south to open and run schools for black children. Universities like Fisk, Morehouse, and Howard were founded. As blacks progressed, Southern white backlash was real, and terrorist organizations such as the Ku Klux Klan committed horrendous acts such as lynching and tar and feathering of black folks. In 1867, the first statues honoring Confederate soldiers were erected in Romney, West Virginia, and Chester, South Carolina. They were seen as part of the larger monument movement of the late 19th century. So no one batted an eye as Southern cities adorned their streets with the likenesses of men who wanted to destroy the United States. But black folks were watching. Southern municipalities openly suppressed blacks from voting by stuffing ballot boxes, moving and or closing voting sites, and by arresting black men on the day before the election. Sounds familiar? Southern Democrats were on the rampage to recapture their lost power. The South shall rise again. By 1877, Reconstruction died. Its demise was sealed by the election of Rutherford P. Hayes in 1876, who coddled up to white Southerners in order to secure the Electoral College votes he needed to win. This kinship sealed the Federalist position of states' rights founded in the 10th Amendment. Disenfranchisement was ultimately accomplished in 1898 through the Grandfather Clause, poll taxes, and the administration of literacy tests, all contrived to get around the 15th Amendment. And this has been a Black History Moment.